Hey guys, welcome back here to Intuitive Angling, and appreciate you guys joining me for a little on the water video on a very windy April day here on Table Rock Lake. Perfect opportunity to talk about how wind affects bass and how wind can be your friend or wind can not be your friend, just depending on the situation. So we're going to go over all the scenarios where how wind affects bass, because it's something you have to deal with all the time. I mean, wind is a factor, whether it's blowing or not, and it always has some impact on how you need to be fishing. So we'll be right back, and we're going to get into that in today's episode. Okay guys, windy day here on Table Rock Lake. Wind was blowing probably 25 miles an hour today. Really good opportunity to talk about wind and fishing, so we're going to get into that in today's video. Also guys, before we get started, real quick, I want to show you something. You guys have heard me talking about this. Guys, I have become a big believer in this bait pop fish scent right here. I've been using it now for over a month. I can tell the difference big time. It's got amino acids in it. It's got real fish in it. It's got sparkle scales in it from Fish Formula, and it stays on forever, guys. You just put a little dab on the end of your finger, rub it into your bait. It stays for like 30 minutes. I'll put the bait pop link in the description of this video if you guys would like to try a tube. But just try it, guys. Go fishing one day without it, and then put this stuff on your, especially any soft plastic or jig. I think you'll definitely notice the difference. So link in the description there. Really appreciate that. Okay guys, wind is a reality in fishing. You're going to have to deal with it. And when you talk about wind, we're not talking about just high winds all the time. Every type of a wind situation is going to affect the fish differently, and it's a very complex conversation, because there is a lot of variables around how wind affects fish, as far as if it makes them bite or if it doesn't make them bite, or the lures that you need to use. There's a lot of factors contributed to that. The two main things to consider when you're determining either to fish the wind, fish in the wind, or get out of the wind is the water temperature and the water clarity. This is going to correlate to where you need to be fishing at, because sometimes you want to fish in the wind. Sometimes you want to fish in areas that are getting pounded by wind, sometimes just a little bit of surface disturbance, and sometimes you want to be in an area where there's no wind whatsoever. So here is a general rule of thumb to remember. Now this is just a generality because there's exceptions to it. Normally the more stained and the more cooler the water is, let's talk about two different spectrums. If you have a dirty water, like stained water, where your water visibility is a foot and your water visibility and your water temperature is pretty cool, you don't want any wind whatsoever. Wind is going to hurt you in a situation like that. And the other extremities, let's say you have warm water and very clear water, that's the other end of the spectrum. You want wind, you want hard wind in a situation like that, and everything else is sort of in between. So let's say, for example, if you're talking about 80-degree water and 10-foot visibility on one end of the extremity, and then again, a foot of visibility and 45-degree water on the other end of the spectrum. Those are two situations where you want no wind or a lot of wind. And then if you have everything in between, let's say, for example, the water temperature is 60 degrees and the water visibility is water visibility is right around 2 or 3 foot, maybe like a 5-mile-an-hour breeze is good, something like that, in order to maximize how the wind is going to affect the fish biting or not. So here's what I like to do with it, as far as how I like to take advantage of it. If I'm fishing in a situation, and I classify it in water clarities and water temperatures together. So if I'm fishing in a situation where the water temperature is between 40 to 50 degrees and your water visibility is less than 2 foot, I am hunting for areas that don't have any wind on it. I want protected water, calm if possible. That's what I'm going to look for, because if you get a strong wind, like a 15-mile-an-hour wind, and you've got water visibility of a foot and water temperatures in the dang geese are loud, water temperatures around 50 degrees, wind is actually probably going to hurt you. it's probably going to make the fishing really, really tough. So you want to get away from that. Now, if you're in a situation, let's step it up a little bit. Say the water visibility is 2 to 3 feet, and say that water temperature is, 50 to 60 degrees in that type of a zone. This is a type of situation where like a 5 to 10 mile an hour wind is good. So in a situation like that, I want to find an area that has a little bit of the surface disturbance, but not much. I want the surface broken up, but I don't want there to be enough wave action to affect, where I'm fishing at. And then if the water clarity, or the water visibility is like over 3.5 or 4 feet, and my water temperatures are over 70 degrees, sort of in that zone there, I'm looking for type of areas that are getting a lot of wind put on it. Because if I have an area that's getting hit by a 15 or 20 mile an hour wind, that's going to activate those fish under those conditions. Okay, now that's just a general rule of thumb as far as how the fish are affected in terms of water clarity and water temperatures, but you also have to have the appropriate lure category in a situation like that. Most of the time, any time that you're dealing with wind and fairly clean water, this is a great situation to fish a reaction bait. So what I try to do all the time, depending upon my wind speed and the water visibility, if I've got a significant amount of wind that's creating a pretty decent chop, I've got a chop of at least that on the water, that's usually going to activate those fish, especially if they're a little bit shallower. So I'm going to be fishing my crankbaits, spinner baits, swim baits, any type of reaction bait, because bass will always bite a reaction bait better if you have surface disturbance and wind. And also wind creates current. I mean, that's another thing a lot of people don't realize, is that current can be increased with wind speed, which actually helps the fish and makes them bite a little bit better, makes reaction baits, a little bit more conducive to that. Okay, now on the other end of it, as that water visibility starts to go down, and my water temperature starts to go down, this is a situation where I'm going to be looking for those protected areas, and I'm going to be fishing slow baits. Jigs, creature baits, something like that I can just be a real finesse with, and those fish are not going to really want to chase in a situation like that. So that's sort of the, how I go about that. Ultimately, though, that you have to let the fish decide, or you have to let the fish, determine themselves, because there's other factors too. It's like wind alone and water clarity does not dictate the personality of the fish. Because let's say, for example, you got a windy day pre-frontal. It's warm, you got a warm south wind like we do right now. Water temperatures are decently warm. That's going to be a really good situation, for those moving baits. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you don't have those situations, maybe not so much. So every situation is going to be completely different. And also the species of bass are going to be different. You'll find out, from what I have found out, spotted bass and smallmouth bass, they like windy days a little bit better. Largemouth, not quite to that extent. So, most of the time, it's like if you got wind, before that front rolls in, you're going to have some aggressive fish. You're going to have fish that are biting those moving lures. But if you have wind after that front goes through, a 20 mile an hour wind before the front goes through and a 20 mile an hour wind after the front goes through is a completely different scenario. Because even though you have wind, a high wind, 15 or 20 miles an hour, you have correlating things like light intensity differences, you got barometric pressure changes. So if you have a 20 mile an hour south wind, when the air temperature is 75 degrees before that front's rolling in, and you got a cloudy day like we have now, yeah, that might activate the fish. But let's say tomorrow, like we're supposed to have a front come in here tomorrow night, if the wind switches to the north and the barometric pressure changes, the light intensity changes, you can't expect the same thing to happen. It's going to have a more negative effect on the fish. So in a situation like that, you may have to slow down and fish on the bottom. But if it sounds complicated and doesn't make a lot of sense, that's because it doesn't make a lot of sense. Bass fishing is a complicated sport, and there's a lot of paradoxes in bass fishing. There's a lot of things that they can be true. There's a lot of things that seem like they are in conflict with each other, but they can be true at the same time. And wind is one of those, situations that do that. But overall, guys, if you look at it day in and day out, most of the time, wind is going to help you to some extent until it gets too heavy. Once wind gets too strong to where it affects your boat positioning and your casting, it becomes a negative. Like today at Table Rock Lake, we had 20, 25-mile-an-hour winds. That is too much because that eliminates a lot of water that you could fish. It eliminates the techniques that you can fish, and you're confined to more limited areas. There's a big difference between a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind and a 20 to 25 mile an hour wind. So that's just another thing that you have to consider with that. And sometimes it pays off to fight the wind. Guys, I've seen situations like fishing up at Lake Champlain in Vermont where it was blowing like a mother, and there would be 3-foot rollers coming across these clear water flats, and those smallmouth would be on fire. But most of the time, if you have problems with boat positioning or holding your boat or lure manipulation, it's usually not that good of a thing. Like, I'll give you guys a prime example today. A lot of the fish here on Table Rock have been setting up on points, secondary and main lake points, and you've got to fish real slow on them. You got to fish like a Ned rig and a drop shot and a shaky head, just really finessey slow. And like today, we couldn't do it. I mean, it was too windy to do that. You couldn't hold the boat. You couldn't cast those light lures where you needed to cast them. So that was pretty much thrown out the window. So wind is going to determine a lot of how and where you can fish. And it just is what it is, guys. You can't really have a strong opinion one way or the other, because that is part of the reality of bass fishing. Wind is going to change all the time. It's going to be, sometimes you're going to be out there and it's going to be glass smooth, and other times it's going to be nasty out there. It's just something that you have to learn to deal with, and you have to put yourself in the best water with the best technique based upon, what that wind speed and direction is going to be at the time. So anyway, guys, hope it helps out. We'll talk later.